Good evening, everyone. Hello, thank you for joining tonight's training webinar. Hope everyone is well. There's a little bit of lag, looks like about 10 seconds of lag at the moment. So just while we get warmed up, anybody in the chat area, just tell me if you can actually hear me, please. If the audio is working and you can see and hear me perfectly. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm getting hello, Anthony, hello, thank you. Sounds like it's working. This is all good. Sound okay, all good here. We're excellent, good, it works. It's been about a month since I've done one of these, so I wasn't sure I'd remember how to do it all, but it's all working, so that's good. Well, thank you for joining. We've invited about 50 people, or 50 people have accepted, so hopefully we'll get a good bunch of people on tonight. Just seeing if I can see how many people we've got so far. Let's have a look. 14 watching so far, so there might be a few more joining. Made the fatal mistake of doing it on Eurovision night, which is probably why we didn't get so many takers. But not a Eurovision watcher myself, so excuse me. That's probably why. Right. Okay. So a few quick. I would say rules and regulations, but it's not really. A few quick bits about tonight. So it's tentatively slated for about an hour and a half. Typically they do run to about 2 hours sometimes, so we'll see how we go. Obviously drop out if you want. There's no obligation to hang around for the whole thing. Just get what you need from tonight, that's fine. So what we're going to do is we do this in 4 sections, just to keep it fair to everyone. So first of all, we talk about the course. So if anyone has any questions on the course material, how the course works, getting around Canvas, anything like that. So we get that out of the way first because that's normally fairly straightforward. Then we talk about the exams, so any questions anybody has on the exams. And then we look at the individual modules, so you'll be familiar with the 9 modules that make up the course. So we talk about all of those one by one, and I'll take questions during those sections. And then at the end, it's kind of any other business really, anything else that we want to talk about. So we try and keep it fairly sort of restricted to those sections. So if you are asking me questions, please do wait until the appropriate time to ask. It's really quite challenging if you sort of asking me about, I don't know, safety while we're in the middle of license conditions, things like that. Please we'll try and stick to a little bit of an agenda. The other favour is if it's anything specific to your account, so you've got a problem with your password, or you want something done to your account, that's probably best done in a private email to me, because obviously we've got 18 other people here. They're not here to see me configure accounts and things like that. So it's general stuff to help everyone pass the exam. Some of you sent in questions, so I have the questions that those of you sent in for me, so I'll do my best to work through those as well. So hopefully that's all right and all good. So what we'll do first of all is I'll just get you to type any questions about the course. We've had a few on the exam, so we'll come on to those in a second. But anything on the course generally, anything about Canvas, anything about our course, if you've got any questions on that first of all, type them into the chat box and we'll crack on with those first of all. I'm just going to keep a bit of an eye on emails because a couple of people said they couldn't find the emails for tonight. So, yep, okay. Jeremy, I hope you got access. Just got your email in. And then we got a Patrick A on. Patrick A, are you on tonight? Fell asleep the instant I did take the quiz. Oh, bless you. It's not that boring. Oh, I hope it wasn't that boring. That's all right. You do get 3 goes at all the quizzes. Jeremy, I've just got your donation. Thank you very much, sir. Sorry, was it Patrick? Jeremy, that's Jeremy. No, Patrick I was after. Patrick A. If that was you that's kindly made a donation, thank you very much. Jeremy, we've got, yep, that's great. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Perfect. ETH0. Good stuff. Nice one. Thank you. If that's you, Patrick, for the donation, really do appreciate that. Thank you. Right. So, gotcha. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Ethernet connection 0. Raspberry Pi person, maybe. I wonder. Yes, thank you very much for the donation. I'll ping you some extra mocks for that. So those that kind enough to donate get some extra mocks. So either later tonight or tomorrow, I'll ping you a link with some extra training material. So no worries. Okie dokie, good. Right, nothing on the course by the looks of it. So let's talk exam. Now that's probably the one most of you want to know about. So I've got questions from Baz Scout, Anthony P, Tweed and Breyer, Turton M and MJ Moss. So I'm going to answer these questions first off, and then I'll take any questions in the chat as well. So just bear with me. Baz Scout asks first of all, I'm studying for fast track. How far ahead should I seek an exam date? It's kind of up to you, really. If you're already pretty confident, let's say you're halfway through the course, you're pretty confident, it's all making sense, you're getting good scores in the module tests, then yeah, think about booking the exam. So at the moment, I think the exam booking is, I don't know if any of you looked at the bookings yet. Let me just take a little look. So RSGB exam booking, RSGB exam booking. So if you go to this particular website, I'm about to paste it in to the chat for you. Okay, so if you wanted to book the exam, the earliest slot at the moment looks like it is Wednesday the 22nd of May. So that is the earliest that you can currently book an exam if you're actually looking to take the exam straight away. Just paste that link into the chat for you. Book exam. So I guess the key question is, if you were to book the exam today for the 22nd of May, are you confident you get 19 out of 26 in the exam? If the answer is yes, you're confident, then book it. If not, wait till you've done the end, do a few mock tests. Really, you shouldn't be booking the exam until you're relatively comfortable that you're going to get 19 out of 26 in the multiple choice. But it depends. I don't know how well you're doing in the course, how much of it's going in. If you're pretty comfy, then go for it. If not, take a few mocks. 19 out of 26 is the pass mark. Hope that one helps. If not, jump into the chat, that's fine. How to sit the foundation exam getting an invigilator, asks Anthony. So you do literally go onto the link I've just pasted, which I typed boo exam, it should be book exam. So you go on there and you pick a date. Just to be clear, you do have two options for exams. You can either do it at home online, which most people tend to do, or you can go to an amateur radio club and do the exam at a club. So I'm assuming here most people are going to take the course and exam online. So you pick a date, you book that date. The RSGB contacts you typically about a week before the exam. You have a video call with the examiner, and they have a chat with you. They check the technology is working. They check that you can access the software. They'll have a look around the room. So they take your webcam and they'll get you just have a look around the room, just to make sure that you're not got anything in there that you're cheating with. Talk through anything that you need to know about the exam, and then off you go. So the RSGB assign the invigilator to you. They're all volunteer invigilators. They're a lovely bunch, most of them. So book the exam about a week before. You'll have that sort of test call to make sure everything works. On the day you've got the exam itself. The only thing you're allowed in is the 4-page exam booklet, which hopefully you'll be fairly familiar with by this point. You can take a calculator and a drink in with you, and a pen and a bit of paper, but you can't take your notes, that kind of thing, in with you. So that is basically how you go about booking an exam. Turton M asks, exams stress me out. This is reported to be an easy one to get us into the hobby. Depends on your point of view. I mean, it's a hobby. It's not like a qualification for a job. It's not like a job interview. If you fail it, you can take it again. If you fail it, who cares? You know, it's not the end of the world. It's not like a qualification or anything like that. If you go in with a fairly open mind and fairly relaxed and think, yep, do you know what? I've done the best I can. I've prepared. I've taken the mocks. I'm pretty comfy. I know what I'm doing. And you're relaxed about it. It is pretty relaxed. So it's 26 questions and you've got an hour. Most people tend to do it under that hour, so you do have plenty of time to check your work, make sure everything's okay. You do need to be careful of some of the questions. That's what the mocks are there for. So there are a few weird and wonderful questions that do come up in the exam. We are trying to get a list of those. So when you do take your exam, if you do find a weird question, let us know, because we'll pass that on to future students as something to watch out for. Do let us know. But the mocks should prepare you. So our mocks are pretty close to the exam questions. According to the survey, we do a little survey at the end. Most people say that the questions are pretty close. So take a few of our mocks, take some of the RSGB's mocks, get used to them, prep for the exam. I'd say it's generally not too difficult, it's not too stressful. People that do our course, we've got a 98% pass rate. So if you can do our mocks and our course comfortably, you're normally okay with exams, unless the nerves get you or something like that. But a little bit of prep, do your revision. There are a few sort of numbers tricks that you can play. So if you are weak on, let's say, I don't know, Ohm's law, the triangles, that's only a mark, and there's 26 marks. So you can afford, if you just can't get something, you just go, yeah, forget it, don't worry about it. I'll just learn everything else, you'll be absolutely fine. So you can fail, for instance, technical basics and feeders and antennas and still pass. So you can completely fail two modules and still pass. Except license conditions, which has 6 marks in it. So you need to be fairly clued up on that one. That's where I'd suggest putting your effort. Make sure you're comfy with license conditions. So hopefully that one answers that one. Best way to prep for the exam, yeah, kind of think we've done it. Take a few mocks, go through your notes. As you're studying, perhaps take some notes of some of the key things to look at. We do have a revision video, and we've also got a how to prepare for your exam video. Give both of those a watch. And as I say, take some mocks, get in some good practice, you should be fine. How long after the exam do I have to wait for Ofcom to be updated so I can apply for my call sign? Okay, yeah, good question. So when you take the exam with the exam software, at the end you get a pass or fail. What then happens is the RSGB sends you a certificate in the post. Normally that comes through, they say within 6 days. It tends to be running at about 4 days at the moment. So you get the certificate through the post within 4 days. You then jump onto the Ofcom website, create an account, put in the candidate number that is on the certificate that you get. So you should normally have your call sign and your license within roughly a week, post allowing. So hopefully that answers all the questions people have asked in advance. But if you have any other exam questions, type them in the chat area now, and I will take a look. Okay, so ETH0, yet to book the mock exam but donated to have the larger pool of questions and take it multiple times. Absolutely. So we have a bunch of mock tests. We actually have a pool of questions. So the mock tests just pick random questions from the pool. So yeah, those kind enough to donate do get access to extra mock tests. There are also free mock tests on the RSGB website. There's 3 up there. Wrong number of figures. 3 up there on the website for free to take a look at. Just be wary of some of the mock sources. So there's quite a good book, which is, that's not a bad book. Got a lot of mock questions in it. It's not a bad one. Slightly out of date. We're on the 2024 syllabus at the moment, so it's slightly out of date but good enough. Just be wary of a site called Radio Tutor, where they haven't actually updated the exam questions for the last 5 years. So it's on the old out-of-date syllabus. So just be a little bit wary of those mocks. And just make sure if you are taking mocks, take them from a decent source and that they're up to date and on the 23-24 syllabus, not the 19 syllabus. Perfect. Okay, been ahead of a week with your mock tests, Friday. Thanks, won't be booking quite yet, need to revise to be confident. Yeah, okay. Would it be on a group call for the online exam or individual Zooms? Normally a group. Typically it's it's normally a maximum of 4 other people. I have heard it go up as high as 6. Sometimes it's 1-to-1, so it depends on how busy they are. But you won't see them, you'll just see the examiner. It's the examiner's got split screen, so you can see and monitor everyone. Yeah, so you won't be seeing loads of other people in the room, and you won't be hearing other people. But yeah, potentially there can be 6 or so other people on that exam session. I have exam anxiety, but honestly, Pete's course has been so straightforward. Yeah, again, don't worry about anxiety. You know, we all worry about these things. If the worst happens and you don't pass, does it matter? You know, I know obviously everyone wants to pass first time, but you know, if you don't pass first time, treat it as a learning exercise. Pass on the second time. But if you're doing well on the mocks, there's no reason why you shouldn't be passing the exam. Don't worry about it. You know, ultimately, just think what's the nerves all about? You know, who's actually going to care? The examiner won't really care. You'll probably never see him again. The other people on the course, you'll have never met them. You won't know their names. So it's only the examiner that will know that you haven't passed first time, and he probably won't care. So, what you're worried about? I know it's easier said than done. We all get anxious about these sort of things. We all want to pass, but it is a hobby exam. It's not a job interview or a qualification or life and death. So do your best, do your study, go into it, and hopefully you'll be fine. Any other questions on exams, please? Anything you'd like to know? There's a bit of a lag on the line, so I'm just waiting for all of you to catch up. Jeremy P. Is Jeremy on? Jeremy P. has just kindly donated. Thank you, Jeremy. Much appreciated. Mocks on the way. I'll send you a few extra mocks to play with. That's fine. Perfect. Have anxiety exam, book my exam. Great. Sorry, can you give me the name of that foundation revision book? Yes, I sure can. It is available on Amazon. I think I can actually give you a link to it if you want it, because we do get a tiny little bit of commission for some of the books that we recommend. So let me just see if I can find you that. S6 Ham Mocks for UK exams. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just paste in a link to all the mocks that are out there, basically, and some instruction. Mocks and books. Perfect. So take a look at that. That should get you in the right direction. So the title is Foundation Radio Revision Questions 2022 edition. There's 200 questions in there. It's quite a thick book. It's not bad. The other one is something called Exam Secrets from the RSGB. It's not quite as good, but it is written by one of the RSGB exam team. So it's questions from the RSGB itself. That's fine. Issues. How long does the exam last? 1 hour. So it's a 60-minute exam and 26 questions. Maximum 1 hour, yeah, correct. Pete, can you confirm? Believe it's 1 hour, 2 minutes a question. That's about right. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on exams? We can always circle back later if we need. That's fine. Okay. Not seeing any other questions on exams, so we'll move on to the modules. So module 1 is kind of an introduction. I normally no questions on that one because we kind of cover that in the upcoming modules. But what about module 2, which is technical basics? Anyone got any questions on that? What have we got? The electrical symbols, Ohm's law, the power equations. Anything anyone's got on module 2, technical basics, please. Didn't get any questions in advance on that one, so that's fine. But if you've got any questions, please do ask now. That's fine. Okay, not seeing any questions on technical basics. Just waiting for you to type. Anyone still typing? Symbols, no problem. It's calculations. Can we do some test questions at home to get into the mode? Yeah, absolutely. Can we have some test questions? So there are some test questions in there. I mean, if anyone wants to, we can do just a very quick little exercise now. There's also a video on the triangles that does give some test questions. But so let's do the power formula, because that's always it's basically the same principle. So can anyone tell me the power formula, please? Anyone know the power formula? Yeah, that'll do. PIV would be probably slightly better, but yeah. So P equals IV. So power is the current times the voltage. So the best way of doing this is with our good friend, the triangle. So we have P, I, V. So we draw the triangle. I don't know how it helps you to remember it. So if you look at the Ohm's law triangle, that is VIR. So some people might think of that sort of virgin or something similar to that. So PVI, PVC, PCR, PCV, whatever helps you to remember it the best. But yeah, as we've got it there, Jodie's got it. P equals I times V. So the triangle is pretty straightforward. So if you want to calculate the power in watts, put your hand over the P, and it is I times V. If you want to calculate the voltage, cover it up, and then it's P over I. If you want to calculate the current, hand over the I, and it's P over V. So if anybody wants to do a little test on that one, so let us say we have a 12 volt power supply and a current of 3 amps. What would the power be, please, on that one? P over IV. P over IV, that's a good one, yeah. So can somebody tell me the power in watts for a 12 amp, 3 amp 12 volts? .36, absolutely. So all we've done there is we've timed 3 by 12 to get the power. Let's just do one other one. So let's say we have a what's an easy one for the maths? So let's say 40 volts. No, hang on. Sorry, 40 watts and 10 volts. What is the current, please? Yeah, Jonathan straight in there. Matty Joe 4. Yeah, so if you look at it that way, it isn't too difficult. Really isn't. It shouldn't be much of a struggle. There are some mock questions on this. There's also a video that goes through this in some detail, and we encourage you to watch the video, pause it, and do the maths. So the triangle is pretty easy. You're all getting it there. So lots of 36s, lots of 4s. So hopefully that is not too much of a struggle. Perfect. It's just practice. Yeah, absolutely right. Totally agree. Totally agree with Peter there. It's just getting used to it in practice. So hopefully that's right. I had a question about SWR and power. Hopefully, are you asking for help with that question or just observing that it was in there? So SWR does tend to come up, and the power formula. So if you need help with that mock question, let me know what the question was, and I can give you some guidance there. That's fine. Studio 9 Jam was educated in the 70s. O-level, yeah, I did exactly the same. Triangle is really cool. Yeah, easy way of doing it, isn't it? Kevin, the pass and the Ofcom candidate posted out. Is there an option for email? Not normally. So the reason for that is because they post you a certificate and a welcome pack, which they don't tend to do by email. So you would get a certificate, looks something like that, in the post, and it's the candidate number on there that matters, and a welcome pack about how to get into the hobby, and an advert for joining the RSGB, that sort of thing. So that's why they do it by post. So you've got a tangible thing and a certificate to hang on the wall, that sort of thing. If for any reason you don't get it, or there's a problem with the post, give the RSGB a call, and they can help you out. Okay. Question: how could you tell if an antenna is matched? It gave the answers: maximum forward power, the SW high. Yep, that's absolutely correct. So did the question make sense? Are you comfy with the answer? I can happily go through that if not. But yeah, what they're after is, I'll give you the, I know we're kind of meant to be talking about technical basics, but so if you put 10 watts into an antenna, and the antenna is perfectly matched, then it is going to be radiating 10 watts. If there's a mismatch and the antenna's not right, then some of that power is going to be reflected back to the transmitter. So let's assume that is our transmitter box. So ideally, if you put 10 watts out of a transmitter, you want all 10 watts to be sent up an antenna. What you don't want is 5 watts to go up the antenna and 5 watts to come down because of a mismatch. So that's the question that they're asking. Okay, hope that answers it. Again, if not, do ask. But I'm not entirely sure what the question and the answers are. So if that doesn't answer it, just let me know the question in as much detail as you can, and I can talk you through that one. Okay, so we didn't have any other questions on technical basics. So that does take us to transmitters and receivers. And I had 2 questions on this one that are kind of the same. So have I got Joe B and Lee's 14 on here? Both asking pretty much questions about bandwidth. So happy to help with that one. It is an odd question, and it's sort of a little bit out of scope for Foundation because we don't do too much on bandwidth. I'll read both questions as written. Hope you're both on and watching this. So Joe says, if you're transmitting on a particular frequency, for instance 14 megahertz, doesn't FM mess things up if you keep changing the frequency, or is it fairly small? And Lee's asks a similar question. I understand the production of the carrier wave, when modulated to include the voice, the combined frequency is then different. If a receiver is tuned to the original carrier wave, how do we receive the whole modulated signal? Why do we need bandwidth for information? Does this alter the frequency from the original carrier wave? Okay, so that's a good question. So hopefully you'll know, if you've done module 3, that a normal signal would look something like that. This is for AM. So you've got the carrier in the middle, and then the lower sideband and the upper sideband. So LSB and USB, and there's your carrier at the top. And that signal will have a bandwidth, which I'm showing down the bottom. So that is as wide as the signal is, so the bandwidth. What I'm going to do is just show you a couple of, because I had these questions in advance, I could do a bit of prep. So let me just enable this diagram here first of all. Okay. So what you're seeing on the screen there, let me just drag that onto the central screen there. So this is actually what an FM signal looks like. In the centre of the screen, you can see the thick red line. That's your carrier wave, effectively. And if you look at the top of the red bit, there's no one speaking, so you can see there's no signal either side of the carrier. If you look at the spikes of red going horizontal, left to right, that is the speech. So you can see the speech as I'm talking. The louder I talk, the wider that gets. The total width of the signal is the band width. So here's probably the likely question that is getting you both on bandwidth. Let me also just show you the other bandwidth diagram. So again, that kind of shows it in a slightly different way. So you can see on the picture on the bottom left, you've got the bandwidth, which is the loudest part of the speech. And up the top, you can see what the bandwidth looks like as well. So that's kind of a summary of what bandwidth looks like. Hoping you can see that okay. Going to widen that out slightly. Yeah, hopefully you can see that okay. So let me just drop back to the webcam. So I don't know if anyone will remember this. Anyone that's got a good memory might be able to tell me what the bandwidth. It is in the training somewhere. Somebody might be able to tell me the normal bandwidth for human speech. So I'm looking for, if I was having a conversation, you were listening to my voice, there's normally sort of a bandwidth specified for human speech. Anyone able to remember that for me? Not quite, no. Okay, so Jonathan's close with 15 kilohertz. So the actual answer as far as the RSGB exam goes is 5 kilohertz. So that is the width of the signal, 5 kilohertz. 15 kilohertz, and that's human hearing matter. Yeah. So that's what your ears can cope with. 300 hertz is a little bit on the low side. So 5 kilohertz is not a bad answer. So that is how much, if you wanted to hear speech, because speech kind of goes up and down a bit, to be able to understand speech, we need about 5 kilohertz. 15 kilohertz is actually a sensible answer. So that would be for sort of, so 5 kilohertz is for basic mono speech. 15 kilohertz would be for high quality speech. And a little bit over that, you start getting music. And when you get up to about 30 kilohertz, then you're talking about sort of music quality. So 5 kilohertz for normal speech is what we're talking about. So when we're looking at modulating a signal, so let's say we're modulating a VHF signal, 145 megahertz looks like that. So that's 145 megahertz. And if we're only really playing around with speech with a range of 5 kilohertz, you can actually see it's quite a small percentage. So the order of magnitude there is actually quite small. So the bandwidth between no speech and full speech is actually relatively small in the grand scheme of things. So the bandwidth is really quite narrow. So all that modulation that we're doing with a signal where we're doing all this kind of stuff, we're only really talking about the difference between these two characters here, the 0 and the 5. That's all we're talking about. So the actual width of the signal, what you're seeing on the screen with the bits either side of the spike, are pretty minimal. So you tune your radio into 500, and because it's relatively narrow either side, there's not a lot to it. You could possibly think of this as an old phone, you know, the old analog coax bit of you know, BT, bit of copper wire. Speech on this is about 5 kilohertz, and it is quite narrow. You can't play high quality music down a phone line. The speech quality isn't great. Morse code has a lot less bandwidth because all you need to hear is the dots and the dashes. And as I say, stereo music and high quality is here. Normal speech is about here. Data is about here, and Morse is about there. So each mode uses different bandwidths, if that makes any sense. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me just read the questions again. So doesn't it mess things up? So because we're only really playing with a tiny little percentage at the bottom, you know, I don't know what the percentage of that is, but it's, you know, of effectively 145,000 to 145,005 is a tiny, tiny, tiny bit at the end of the signal. I understand the production of CW, we're modulated to include voice. Is it different? Yeah, so because it is such a tiny little discrepancy, You know, if you looked at 144 to 146 and 145 was here in the middle, then we are talking about a change of, you know, like a fraction of a dot either side of it. So tuning in, you're still going to tune into the signal. Yeah, there's a little bit of noise either side, but not a lot. So it doesn't make a massive difference, if that makes any sense. Okay, hopefully, so Jodie's got it. That's good. Lovely, lovely, lovely. No problem. Hopefully that all makes sense. And the smaller the bandwidth, the further the signal could travel. No, not necessarily. So the signal is the signal. So it's not a case of how far it travels. It's about being able to hear it. There's a slight caveat to that. Morse code with really, really tiny bandwidth is easier to understand because it's either there or it's not. Human voice, if you're right on the edge of reception, it can be hard to hear. Dots and dashes, you either hear them or you don't. So it's not really a range thing, it's a quality and receiving all of the signal thing, if that makes any sense. Yeah, no such thing as a silly question, so no, that is absolutely fine. So no, it's yeah, don't worry about getting things wrong. Just ask if you've got a question, and that's what we're here for. But no, the bandwidth is all about taking up space. So again, if you look at 144 to 146 as our frequency range, that's all the space we've got to play with. So we economise. If you look at the band plan, for instance, which you might have come across, you can actually see the bandwidths are there. So we carve it up. So we put a bit of Morse there and a bit of data there. The speech stuff, because it's wider bandwidth, tends to take up a good chunk of that channel. So you get a lot more Morse conversations in. So it's all about dividing up the frequencies that we've got efficiently, and speech takes up more than Morse and data, basically. Yes, so that certainly, yeah, ETH0 is kind of right. So if we look at an AM signal, again, there's our AM signal with the two sidebands. What you can do, if you transmit single sideband, effectively you're doing that. So the bandwidth for that audio is half what it is for an AM signal. So you can get twice as many signals in the same space, and you can pump all of your power into that half rather than the other half. So yeah, I suppose Matty is sort of right. If you put all your power there, but 100 watts here instead of 50 watts here and 50 watts here, then yeah, you're putting more power to get the signal out, so it might get a bit further. But yeah, okay, that's cool. Lovely. No, it's a good question. It is a good question. So I just want to make sure you're all clear on the answers there. That's fine. Perfect. Okay, anything else on transmitters and receivers, modulation, that kind of stuff? Yeah, AM signals do travel further. Yeah, that is true. Mainly because they bounce off the ionosphere, so they will get further. Yeah, absolutely. So AM and SSB will do the distance. FM tends to be local and doesn't bounce off the ionosphere in the same way. Okay, if there's nothing on transmitters and receivers, we'll look at feeders and antennas. So I've had one question in advance. This is from Edward. He says, at the end of module 4, the answer for 7 gives the answer as Yagi. Does it not? Yeah, okay. So this is a classic example of overthinking. So the question is, if you want to get the most, if you're trying to work a weak signal, what is the best antenna for it? And we give two options. So we give the quarter wavelength, or we give the Yagi. So technically, if you want to get the furthest distance, you do it with a beam antenna. And I will do the usual little demo that I've done before, only because this can help anyone who's not quite getting how beam antennas work. So as you've probably seen with the ERP calculations and that sort of thing, if we, let's say let's see who's on the ball tonight. So let's say we're transmitting 10 watts into an antenna that has a 3 dB gain. What is our ERP, our radiated power? Anyone tell me that one? 20 watts, absolutely correct. Well done, spot on. So for those that don't know how to do that, you've got the handy dB conversion table on the back here. So 3 dB means multiply by the power of 2. So 10 watts times 2 is 20 watts. So well done. So a lot of people ask, why is it that effectively a bit of metal can amplify a signal from 10 watts to 20 watts? No amplification in there, it's just a bit of metal. Like and the yard is basically a TV aerial. So if you look at that, you think, well, how come all of that, you put 10 watts in, you're getting 20 watts out. There's no amplifier. How is that magically working? And the best way of demonstrating that is with the aid of my handy little torch here. So that is a torch. That's just effectively a light bulb. And think of that as our quarter wave or half wave vertical antenna. So you can see the light is shining out in that direction, forward, back, up and out. And that is our little bulb, shining in all directions. If I alter it and effectively turn it into a beam, watch how the brightness to the webcam changes. You can see that's a lot brighter. So I've got no light coming off the ends, no wasted light going in the directions that it was before. All of the energy is focusing into a beam, and you can see that's a lot brighter. So I'm not changing the light bulb or the electricity or anything else. All I'm doing is focusing that energy into a beam. So if you have a weak station that's a long way away, do you want to communicate it with that strength or with that strength? So the answer is you want to use a beam. So a Yagi antenna would give you that beam, if that makes any sense. So it's basically a focused beam. So it's the effective radiated power in the forward direction is what is doing the work for you. And you can see there, it's a lot brighter, but I'm not physically changing the structure of the torch in any way. I'm just focusing that beam into one direction. Edward's question was, and this is where you can read too much into it. He said, what if it was a NAF Yagi? And yes, in that case, of the two, I would rather have that than a Yagi that didn't do anything. But that's not what the question said. So the question's basically saying, to get a stronger signal, what would you use? And the answer is a beam antenna. Obviously, the answer isn't a broken beam antenna. So overthinking it there, because it didn't say it was a working Yagi. He's made the assumption that maybe it's not a very good one, or it's not designed for that frequency, or it's not a good match. But that's slightly overthinking it. The question is, what's better, an omnidirectional antenna that goes in all directions, or a focused beam of energy in one direction? Obviously the answer is a focused beam in one direction. Hope that one helps. I don't know, Edward, if you're on, but let me know if that has helped you. That's fine. What if the Yagi was made of cheese? There we go. Okay, any other questions on feeders and antennas, please? Excuse the cough, it's just a little tickle in the throat. It's not a cough, a little tickle. One of yours with cheese, you get a squeaky signal. Eek. Feeder me with cheese. Oh dear, if you want cheese, you should be watching the Eurovision Song Contest. Right, okay. Swig of tea. Thank you. A delicious signal. Oh dear, oh dear. Right, okay. Questions on, so nothing on feeders and antennas. Anything on propagation? Any questions there? Balun always on a dipole? No. So a balun Let's do some props. Props are always useful. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of show and tell here. What type of feeder is that, please? I'm also going to ask you if that's balanced or unbalanced, please, as well. There's a slightly thinner one. So, correct, yeah, unbalanced coax. So that is unbalanced because there's not two equal parts. In contrast, what is this, please, as feeder? Is that balanced or unbalanced, and what would we say that was? Balanced ladder line, absolutely. So the question was, do you always use a balun with a dipole? The answer is no. So a balun, that's a balun, converts balanced. So our two legs of the dipole, one going that way, one going that way. So that's balanced to unbalanced. So you wouldn't need it if you had a balanced antenna. And a good example of that, those that are my age or older might remember these weird things that you used to get on your hi-fi, and you'd have to put that up on the wall of your hi-fi. Anyone remember those? So effectively, that's your your dipole, and that's your feeder, and that used to plug into the back of your hi-fi, and that used to be your FM radio aerial. So that doesn't need a balun because it is balanced. So you don't need to connect it to anything unbalanced because that is ladder line cable all the way through. So you don't need it. But if you're connecting a balanced antenna, like a dipole, to unbalanced coax, then you use a balun, balanced to unbalanced. So you don't always need one. You only need one if you've got one half of it unbalanced and one half of it balanced. Cracking, perfect. So does that one help? Who was asking that one again? That was Anthony. So Anthony, does that make sense for you? Yes, old. You see how old I am? The grey hairs are coming through there. There we go. Okay, perfect. Excellent, thank you. So any questions on feeders and antennas or propagation? If not, we will go on to license conditions. Okay, so I've got three questions on license conditions. So I got Steve Norris asking about band plans, JC Russell, whoever, I think that's right, asking about EMC and license conditions, and Graham Walker asking about supervision. So I'll start on the license conditions if there's nothing else, and go through these one at a time. So band plans. Now, I don't know how much of that you want to go through. There is the whole 20-minute video on it, but effectively on page 3 of the booklet is the band plan. And if you're on, are you on, Steve? If you did have any specific questions, let me know. But basically, this is the 2-meter band plan. So 144 to 146. And on the second page, this is the allocation of frequencies we're allowed to use. So 144 to 146 is there. And that expands out to that. At the top, you've got all the more stuff. Then you've got a lot of the data stuff. Then you get the repeaters down here. And then you get the voice kind of stuff down here. And then you've got the space stuff there. So it is a case of using this to identify the frequencies or the areas of the frequencies that you can use. So if you want to use Morse, it's up the top somewhere. Data is about here. Repeaters, beacons, and then the voice chat down here, and space at the end. Will this change under the new regulations? Yes. And when we get to the end, I will talk about those new regulations as well. Fonts are tiny. Yeah, okay, so if you do have sight issues and you are struggling to read that, you've got a couple of options. You can print it on A3 paper. If you've got access to a printer that will do that. The RSGB don't mind you doing that. They don't care what paper it's printed on. So save it onto a memory stick, take it to a local printers, print it out on A3. I think you can also use a magnifier. You don't get these little lenses that you magnify with. So if you are short-sighted or having struggle reading it, larger print is an option. For people with dyslexia, printing on different colour paper can make a difference. I would also recommend for the exam, take a ruler so that you can just use that to go up and down the bit of paper and give you a little bit of a guidance there. If anyone does have any disabilities that require any extra help, then talk to the RSGB before sitting the exam, and they can make arrangements for people that have got maybe sight issues or suffer from a condition that means they can't access one of these properly. So talk to the RSGB if you need to. So that's the basics of band plans. There is a video, 20 odd minute video talking about band plans. Have a look at that. I go through pretty much line by line on here, explaining what's on there. So take a look at that video if you need to, or find me some questions now and I can look something up for you. License conditions. So that was a bit of a broad one from JC Russell, because that's obviously an entire module. So I didn't know if you wanted me to go through the whole module or just bits of it. If you are on tonight, just tell me which bits you're after, because obviously, again, that's nearly a half an hour video on license conditions. So I don't know if there's anything specific you want me to go through. If not, you can watch me talk for half an hour on the video, going through all that step by step. And Graham asked a supervision question. So the supervision questions are a bit weird. So his question is, you're at another amateur's house operating on the supervision of their full license, and he goes out of the room. What is the legislation regarding your QSO? So let me give you a real world example. So my personal call sign is M0PSX, and I am a full license holder. My wife, who's actually out this evening, is a foundation license holder. She is M6PSK, so she is a foundation. So there's our two call signs. And behind me you can see my amateur radio shack, and my wife and I can share that shack. So obviously if I'm operating, I can go up to 400 watts. If Sarah's operating, she can go up to 10 watts. Under supervision we can switch that around. So potentially Sarah could use my call sign at potentially up to 400 watts if she wanted to. She would have to use my call sign and my license conditions at 400 watts, and I would have to be supervising her for the entire duration. The wording of the license says under direct supervision. So if I leave the room, I am no longer directly supervising her, so that would have to stop. And she either has to wait till I come back in the room, or she can drop back down to 10 watts and use her own call sign, not my call sign. So she can only borrow my call sign if I'm there in the room supervising her as she does it. It actually works the same way. So I can use her call sign, M6PSK, under her supervision, but I have to go to her license conditions at 10 watts. So it's a little bit weird. Nobody really uses it. And as has been hinted at, there have been some changes, which we will talk about when we get to the end of tonight's session, if anyone's interested, which basically makes that question a bit redundant. But if you're taking your exam between now and the 1st of September, what I've just told you on here is what you need to know. So I hope that one helps. Any other questions on licensing conditions? Yeah, no problem at all. Ask away, Matty, that's absolutely fine. Getting similar call signs, yeah, that's fine. I have a handheld portable radio Baofeng, which I have for a costume I wear. With foundation, am I allowed to use it? Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fine. Baofengs are fine, so I have a Baofeng as well. Got a weird yellow one because I won it in a raffle at a club. But absolutely, it's fine for foundation. A lot of people do use these. They're about 30-40 quid for a basic Baofeng. Yeah, absolutely, you can use that at foundation. There's no problem with that at all. Nope. So you can use it on. So this runs 2 meters, so 144 to 146, and also 430 to 440 UHF. So you've got VHF and UHF on this little radio. These were great. So my first radio was that one. So this is a Yaesu. This was about 120 quid. Then these came out for about 30 quid, and everyone started raving about these because they're just a fourth the price of something like that. I still love this radio, don't get me wrong. These are a bit plasticky by comparison. This could be run over by a tank and it would be alright. This, if you drop it, it shatters. So everyone went for Baofengs because they were about 40 quid. There's a new player in town called Quansheng, which is this one. That's Quansheng. And again, for sort of size comparison, they're all pretty similar. These things are a tenner. And they do VHF, UHF, and you can software program them and all sorts of clever things. 10 quid, I mean, it's bonkers. So yeah, from that to that to that. So Baofeng's absolutely fine. A lot of people use them at foundation. They're perfectly fine for foundation. And the Quanshengs are pretty good, but a little bit cheaper. Yeah, the UV V8 Quanshengs. There is a review up on the SXAM website and a little link to get one. So if you want to use the little link, I think we get something like 25p for a sale of a Quansheng. Yes, you can add software capabilities to it. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see it on here, but this has been flashed to the EG Zoomer programming, so you can't see it on here, unfortunately, but you can get little bar graphs and thingies on there with the newer software. So these are pretty fun to experiment with, certainly. Okay, so let's have a look at any other questions. Are there any frequencies not available to foundation? Yes, there's a few. To be honest, we actually do pretty well in the UK. So that's everything that's available at foundation. There have been some changes, and again, when we get to the end, we can talk about those if necessary. So they've recently given us a few more down here to play around with. There's probably one important one that you can't get at foundation, and that's 5 megahertz, so up here. So that is reserved for full license holders only, mainly because it's actively in use by the military. So you have to have a full license to use that one. But most of the UK frequencies are available at foundation. Yeah, US is a bit more strict than we are. That said, so at foundation we get 10 watts at entry level. In America they get up 1,500 watts at entry level because they're such a big country, they need more power. So they don't give you as many bands, but they give you a heck of a lot more power, is the trade-off there. What have I missed? New regulations we've done, not finished off this module. Started. Got a couple, that's why I'm here. Can you add hardware to it to enable... so this, yeah, you can actually open that up to access HF. It's not great, to be honest, but what do you expect for 10 quid? And also the antenna isn't really designed for those lower frequencies. But yeah, you can get the basics of HF on there if you want. So it is a software setting, but it's not great, I'll be honest. Yeah, you're better off with a proper radio designed for HF. But you can play around with these. You can also play around with the dongles. You get the USB dongles that will let you listen to HF frequencies. Don't forget, HF is more about the antenna than it is about the radio. So you do need a decent antenna to do too much. Is a loop antenna the best to receive HF? Depends. Some people love loop antennas, others hate them. I've never really used a loop antenna. Is it the best? So arguably the best thing you can have is a beam antenna, and a loop is a little bit directional, but it's not as directional as a beam. So best would be a beam, because you can point it exactly where you want. And again, we go back to the whole torch business for that one. Loops are good, yeah, delta loops, but there's so many different antenna types. Saying what is the best is like saying what's the best car. You know, what depends on your budget, depends on your space, depends on what you can get away with. Personally, I tend to use long wires, where I just go somewhere, put a bit of wire up a tree and see what happens. Everyone's got their own sort of preferences, but the easiest way to upset a radio amateur is say, what is the best antenna or what is the best radio? Because you would just start an argument because everyone thinks theirs is best. But yeah, delta loops and ordinary mag loops are good. So are long wires, so are Yagis, so are dipoles. They're all different, you know. Super Bomb channel, contacting Alpha Centauri. So the base is on the moon, that's fine. Yeah, same as cars, exactly. Perfect. Okay, anything else on license conditions? If not, I think that was all the questions I had actually. EMC safety and operating procedures are the last three. I didn't get any questions in advance. So anyone have anything on EMC or safety or operating procedures or anything I've missed so far? I'll take any questions on the syllabus stuff and then we can talk about anything else after that as we need. So anything else from anyone, please? Yeah, stolen call signs do happen. Pretty rare. I've heard a couple in my 12 years licensed. I've heard a couple. Will we need to do an EMC review on foundation equipment? Okay, so there's the question. Are you as far as license conditions? So the answer to that is anything that is transmitting over 10 watts EIRP needs to do an assessment, and that translates to 6.1 watt ERP. So if you're transmitting over those powers, then yes, you do need to do an EMC assessment. So obviously, foundation allows 10 watts. So if you're going over 6 up to 10, then yes, you would need to do an EMC assessment. They're not hugely onerous. Don't worry too much. It is a case of using that spreadsheet, putting in the details of your antenna, and getting the results. I'll find mine. It's, as I said, it's not really onerous. Of course, you can never find it when you want to, can you? Yeah, so when you get licensed, you tend to end up with a wodge of stuff. So in here somewhere is my assessment. It took me, 20 minutes to knock it together, and meets the criteria quite comfortably. Let me just see if I can find it. I actually went a bit above and beyond as well, mainly because, there we go. So there's mine, and what I did on the back was I took a picture of it and I drew my antenna to show the pattern. But yeah, it's off the spreadsheet, 10-15 minutes to do, so it's not exactly onerous, but yes, you should do that. Just to be clear, that is for EMF, not EMC. So EMF is how much energy you're putting out and potentially upsetting the public. That's the EMF rule rather than the EMC rule. 446 is limited to half a watt. Does a licensed amateur have any increased power on the band? No. So 446 is not an amateur frequency. They are the amateur frequencies, and you'll see 446 is not in there. So that has nothing to do with us. 446 is not an amateur frequency at all. EMC is that for portable or base stations. It's all about, again, it's technically EMF. It's about the public. So base stations and portable. So if you're out in a field and you've got loads of members of the public walking around next to your antenna, then yeah, the public are being exposed to the electromagnetic field from your antennas. So it's everywhere. It's home, it's portable, it's technically in a car. Normally it's not from a handheld because these tend not to go over about 5 watts, so they tend to be alright. But yeah, if you're out portable in a field at a public event with 100 scouts around you or whatever, then yeah, you still need to do that assessment because there's members of the public in range of your transmissions, and you do need to do that safety assessment for the field strength. Okie dokie. Yeah, as I say, I wouldn't worry too much. It's literally plugging in your numbers into a spreadsheet and pressing print. I'd be amazed if it took anyone more than about 10 minutes to do it, and you only have to do it once. Unless you change your antennas, then you need to do it again. So it's yeah, it's not exactly a hassle. So you know, don't stress too much. Literally putting 10 watts in your antenna into a spreadsheet and pressing print. As I say, I went over and above and did photos. Still took me only about half an hour, but yeah, don't stress. It's not a massive ordeal. Okie dokie. Do you download the spreadsheet or is it online? Both. So it is available as a downloadable Excel or an online calculator, where you can just put it into a web page and press print. So you've got both options. I did mine on a downloadable spreadsheet because I was nosy. I wanted to look at the code behind it and see how they'd done it. So it's a downloadable Excel spreadsheet or it's an online EMF calculator. Cool. Okay, so we've done the course, we've done the exams, we've done the syllabus. So that kind of leaves us to any other business, if you like. The 2 questions I got in advance were Baofengs, just the word Baofengs from JB844. So I think we've done that, but if you've got any specific questions about the Baofengs, just let me know, that's fine. The other question was from John Appleton, asking about the new changes. So I'm happy to talk about it. I'm going to leave that till the end, just because you'll find out why. But has anybody got any other questions on anything else we've covered or anything else about amateur radio generally? And we'll talk about that next. If not, we'll then go on to the license changes. Yeah. So under the safety module, we do cover that. Don't touch an antenna while it's transmitting, you get a burn. If I'm transmitting my radio signal and call sign from my living room, am I unwittingly giving out information about my home's location? Hang on. What? I'm transmitting my radio signal and my call sign from my living room. Am I unwittingly giving out information about my home's location? How would you be doing that? Not quite sure what you're asking there. Let me read that again. If I'm transmitting my radio signal and call sign from my living room, am I unwittingly giving out information about my home's location? Okay, so potentially. So let's say you live there and I live there. So that's you and that's me. Now, in theory, if I swung a beam antenna like that, I would roughly get a bearing of where you lived. So I could potentially tell that you were somewhere along that line. Now, if you were clever and you jumped in a car and you drove up to here, and also then used a beam antenna and swung it around, you would find that you were somewhere on that line. If you then drove to down here and swung again, where these lines intersect is where the signal's coming from. It's called radio direction finding, and if somebody wanted to track you down, they could. You'd have to be transmitting for the whole time while you're doing it, And of course, when you're transmitting, half the time you're listening and half the time you're transmitting. And if you're only on for, let's say, I don't know, 10 minutes a day, the time it would take to do that is quite challenging. So it is doable. All radio signals are traceable. So potentially somebody could find you and locate you by doing that. Depends what you like on privacy, really. People say, how can people find out where I live? And it's like, well, they could just follow you from the shops or from work or something like that. It's very difficult to completely hide your identity. But yeah, a radio signal does give out a footprint, and you can work out where it is. The other obvious thing is if you've got an antenna up on the roof and your neighbours notice their TV suddenly starts getting interfered with, the first thing they're going to do is look around at all the roofs and see that you've put up an antenna and know it's you. So you might be advertising yourself by having an antenna on the roof. But yeah, radio triangulation is exactly what that is. So it is doable. I don't know anyone that's actually done it. It is technically doable. But I'll be honest, I'm not sure that's a major thing that most of us worry about particularly. Didn't they get bad press about harmonics? To be honest, yeah. I mean, a cheap 10 quid radio versus a professionally made and approved 120 quid radio. Yeah, yes, there is a difference. They're not as good. If I needed a radio, I reach for that one. It's solid, it's reliable, it's perfect, it does everything I need it to do. It also is 12 times more expensive than that one. So of the two, I would prefer that one. Now, if I was looking, I'd buy one of these to play with. They're not as good. If you look under the back of it, it doesn't have a UKCA sticker on it to indicate it's been approved by the UK government. They aren't as good. They potentially can allegedly cause interference. They're not banned in the UK, and everybody in the UK uses them. So yeah, they're not as good. But then, if you're paying 12 times less for something, it's going to be of a lower quality. Press. How do you donate? So you should hopefully have got an email from me today with the code for tonight's webinar. And I think the email says something. What does it say? Sure, it was in the email. Did I not? Maybe I missed it. So thanks for registering for tonight's webinar. The webinar starts at 8. You can access it from the following link. Blah 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 blah. Right at the bottom is a green thing that says, "Is our course useful? Our free courses are only available thanks to kind donations from attendees. Courses are free and supported by your donation. How to say thanks." So that is how to make a donation. You can also jump on our website, so hamtrain.co.uk. On the right is a box that says donate, so you can do that. And yeah, as Studio 9 says, if you look in the YouTube description, so it says in the description of this, we'll provide some extra mocks as a thanks. Please see Essex HamTrain thanks. So we don't hide the donation options very far, so they are out there. Completely optional. You don't have to. There's no pressure on making a donation. Obviously, it helps cover our hosting costs and everything else. So and as a thank you for a donation, we give out some extra mocks. Can randoms find my address? Yeah, if they could be bothered. You'd have to be transmitting for quite a long time, but people potentially can. Might not be aware there's a massive aura tonight. What will it affect? It will affect HF. It won't. Unlikely to affect VHF, UHF. Probably affect HF though. Fox hunts, yeah, they're still called fox hunts. It's a sport. You set up a transmitter somewhere and people have to try and find it using triangulation and direction finding. If you are worried about it, you can also use internet radio, where you're putting out your signal over an internet radio or going through a repeater, so you're not leaving quite the same footprint if you are worried about people tracking you down. It's quite difficult to do, I'll be honest. So I wouldn't hugely worry about it, but if it is a concern, you can use internet for your connectivity as well. Then you need an internet expert to track you down. You give out more information on your mobile and shopping cards, yeah. I mean, you're tracked by CCTV, your car registration numbers tracked wherever you go. You go into Tesco's with your loyalty card, you're telling 25,000 Tesco employees what loo roll you use. So, tracking is a challenging one at the best of times. Joe, thank you. My watch says you've donated. Thank you, Joe. Very much appreciated. Thank you for that. Mock's on the way. Sounds like fox hunt, fair enough. It's pretty cool. Direction finding, yeah, no worries. There's a different way of doing it these days. They use time differential. Again, amateurs wouldn't have the kit to do that, but you can. It's what Ofcom and the government use to track you. Is all based on time. So what they do is, so let's say Jodie's living up there. The government have fixed receiver points around the UK, or they can use mobile phone masts. That is also done with mobile phone masts. So what they do, so that's our target that we're trying to get to. So they ping, they receive the radio signal, and they work out how many milliseconds it took, and then how many milliseconds it took to get there, and how many milliseconds it took to get there, and how many milliseconds it took to get there. And you can work out where it is by dividing the speed of light from the number of milliseconds that the radio signal took. It's like GPS in a car. Your phone knows where you are because it's working out how long it took to get a satellite signal, so they can track you that way. Jonathan G, thank you very much for your donation. Excellent, you are very kind, sir. Mock's on the way to you as well, thank you. Takes a lot of time and effort to triangulate. How often do we do these webinars? So we try and do, we were doing them every 3 weeks. We're finding the demand was tailing off a little bit, so this one's been 4 weeks. If there's demand, we do them more frequently. If there's less demand, so we invited 450 people, and we've got 19 on. So a lot of people just aren't interested in the webinars. If we don't see a lot of interest, we don't tend to run them that often. Where we were getting a lot of interest, we were doing them more regularly, but if there's not that many people that respond, we tend not to do them that often. What I would say is if you go onto Canvas, the last 5 or 6 are all on there. So if you do want to watch some more, fine. If not, normally, as I say, we aim for 3 weeks. So because we're doing a 3-week course, we try and make sure there's one webinar per course, if you like. So the next one will probably be in 3 weeks' time. Hi, web invite had no time on. Hi, web invite had no time on. Web invite had no time on, didn't it? Oh, I'm sure it did. Did I miss the timeout? More for me if I did. Let's have a look. So is that the email that says invitation to foundation training webinar 8 PM Saturday? So it's in the subject, 8 PM Saturday. Okay, I must admit it's not in the body, but it does say it in the subject. So invitation to foundation training webinar 8 PM Saturday. So yeah, I thought I put it in. Okay, yeah, no worries, not a problem. If we get something we don't fully understand, it's email the best approach. Yeah, generally that's fine. Drop me an email. You can do it in the messaging section of Canvas, or you can ask it in the discussions group. So if you want to ask the whole class, put it in discussions, or you can use the inbox and send me a private message in Canvas, or just email hamtrain@essexham.co.uk. So whichever you fancy. How illegal is it for me to try listen to air traffic control on a radio near Heathrow? I see plenty of people doing it, but don't want to overstep. Okay, so technically it's illegal because the Wireless Telegraphy Act has a clause in there about you can only listen to things that are intended for public broadcast, and you're not allowed to listen to things that you're not allowed to listen to. So you are, unless you're a pilot, you're not technically allowed to listen to aircraft. Amateur is fine, broadcast radio and the BBC and all that is fine, CB radio are fine. So CB, amateur and broadcast are allowed, but aircraft, shipping, all of those other things. Technically, legally, we are not allowed to listen to. If you go to an air show, you will probably see dozens and dozens of people with aircraft scanners. This radio and this radio, and I think this radio can all receive aircraft. I believe the number of people that have ever been prosecuted in the UK for illegally listening to aircraft is 0. So, would it be wrong to say everyone does it? Don't want to be overstepping anything illegal. Technically, a lot of people have done and do it. Nobody's ever been prosecuted. It is technically not legal, but there's a lot of things that aren't legal that a lot of people do. So I have been guilty of driving at 71 miles an hour once. How difficult one to answer with any degree of legality, but the official answer is it's not allowed, but a lot of people do. Right, moving on. No time. How legal is it for me? Got to go. So A is going. CTCSS programming, how to do it. So you've got a couple of options. You can either do it from the radio itself, or you can do it using connecting to a computer. So I'll give you the example of my my Yaesu. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. Can you see that displayed? Does that show? Yeah, just about. So if I put it into frequency mode, I don't know if you can see that, 145,500. On this one, I do function 2. No, hang on. And I can set tone on function 2, tone T-squelch, reverse DCS. So tone on, and then function 2, and I can change the CTCSS tone. Again, sorry, it's probably not coming out very clearly, but so 110.9, 107 point so on. So this one happens to be quite easy. Some of them are from the menu options. So they all have both ways of doing it. So from a handheld, you can do it from the menus. On the Baofeng, if I go to menu, it is okay. Option 13. Transmit CTCSS, and it's currently set to off, but I can set it on. So you can do it from the radios themselves, or you can use software. A lot of people do prefer the software option. I must admit I do. So with my radios, I tend to buy the programming lead. So that is the Baofeng programming lead. So that plugs into there. That plugs into a USB port, and I program using the programming lead. And the software to look out for is something called Chirp, C-H-I-R-P. Chirp is free software that you can program quite a few radios with. So that works with things like the Baofeng and the Quansheng. As it happens, I don't think it works with the Baofeng, with the Yaesu, but Chirp is sort of a common one. Yeah, it's not for me, is it? Yeah. Planes. Okay. Yeah, it does go on. As I said, no one's ever been prosecuted for it, to the best of my knowledge. I think the law is there for things like back in the day, you could listen to the police. So if you heard the police were doing something and you acted on that information, and they wanted a law in there that would stop you doing it, so it's illegal to act on information that you've learned from the police. So that's what that law is for. But given you can track aircraft and see them landing and stuff like that, they're not exactly secret. And hearing a pilot say, "Can I land, please?" is not really secret. So I don't think anyone would ever arrest you and take you to court for listening to an aircraft. It's never, to my knowledge, it's never happened. but by the letter of the law, it probably isn't allowed, or I know it isn't allowed, but whether anyone will bother enforcing it, I think we've probably got bigger fish to fry in this country than worrying about people listening to air show traffic. Perhaps a guide to use them that's not in Chinese. Yeah, absolutely. That's why a lot of people use Chirp, because it's in English. Just plug it into a computer and do it all in English. You don't have to worry about the manuals. Yeah, a lot of these radios have manuals that are written in sort of pseudo-English or Chinglish or whatever it is it's called, because they're so badly translated, but you can normally get there. If not, as I think someone said, YouTube videos, or you can use our forum, asking our forum or Facebook group. Okay, not for me. Going to use lots of YouTube videos, thanks again. Times of crisis to enforce security? Yeah, probably. The government's got a lot of laws it never uses, that it can roll them out if it ever needs to, so that's probably why. Cool, thank you for the Chirp recommendation. We'll get that now, that's fine. Have I still got the Chirp? Yeah, let me just... This is from a previous webinar. Let me just fire that up. Okay, so that's what Chirp looks like. And that's actually the contents of my radio. So memory preset 111 is the Danbury repeater, which is the repeater close to me here in Chelmsford. And you've got the frequency, the name, the CTCSS tone, the tone mode, the offset, and the tuning steps or the bandwidth. And you basically click on radio up the top and then download the contents of your radio, as I think Studio Jam's just said there. Yeah, download it first and then make your changes, but you can save them, so you can download when you buy it off, from wherever you buy it. First thing to do is connect, go to radio, do download all the settings that you've already got, save that as original or something like that, and then make some changes and then upload it again using the radio option. It is pretty straightforward. Okay, perfect. What does offset mean? Okay, so that is covered in module 9, repeaters. So let's just touch on repeaters. So let us say I am here and I want to talk to somebody who's over here. Don't know if you've looked at the repeaters module yet, but so if I've got my radio here and I'm trying to talk to my friend who's got a radio here, and we can't get anywhere because there's a hill in the way, so my signal isn't getting to this other person's signal. We have things in amateur radio called repeaters, and they typically are at high points in the counties. So the nearest one to, I'm in Southend, we've got one up in Chelmsford called GB3DA, so I can send my signal into that repeater and it repeats it over a wider area and the other person will be able to hear it. So the way it works is it's got one antenna and two radios, and they use different frequencies. So the repeater has an input and an output. So I transmit on the input, so I'm sending on a particular frequency, and it's retransmitting it in real time on the output. So for my local repeater, the frequency is 145.125. So I transmit on 145.125, and the repeater transmits it out on 145.725. And the difference between them is 0.6. So 725 minus 125 is 0.6. So the offset is 0.6 megahertz. So that is my offset. So rather than specifying the input and the output frequency, you put the offset in. Most of 2 meters, the offset is 0.6 or 600, depending on how you want to write it. Coolio. Have I ever chatted to the International Space Station? How do I answer that? Yes, but not in the way you'd expect. And also, yes, but not in the way you'd expect. So I was involved in a schools contact where a local school here in Essex spoke to astronauts. I personally didn't speak to the astronaut, but I was involved in the comms setup to get that done. So I personally didn't speak, but I was in a room with about 50 kids who were speaking to astronauts. So I have been involved in the process. I didn't directly speak to them. What I have done is I have spoken to the computers on the ISS. It's going to be sod's law, I won't be able to find it now. But they have a digipeater up on an International Space Station. See if I can find what I need. Okay, I probably won't be able to find this quickly. I might be lucky. So there's a digipeater, and I sent a message to it, and I got a confirmation that my signal had been received, and then I got a card from NASA confirming that I'd done it. I'm not going to be able to find it at short notice. It's in this massive pile of paperwork, but I got a confirmation from NASA that I'd done it. There is... the space station does send out images quite frequently, so using something called SSTV, so you can download pictures of the space station from the space station. Done that loads of times. There is also a schools contact. Did it happen today or is it happening tomorrow? Let me have a look. The thing to look for is something called ARIS. April the 15th. So yeah, I've missed it. But there are schools contacts where you can listen in to the space station. The other thing they've got up there is a voice repeater. So you send your voice to the space station. It's exactly like that, but it's on the ISS, and the range is different. I've done that a couple of times where I've sent a message to the ISS, and it's retransmitted it out. I've spoken to Italy by effectively using their voice repeater to get to Italy. So that's quite a common thing. That's quite easy to do. You can actually do it with a handheld. It is doable. So I've never spoken to an astronaut, but I've spoken to the computers on the space station several times, and I've been involved with talking to astronauts. EME I've never done. Earth, Moon, Earth Bounce. I know someone that has. One of our regulars, Dorothy, has done that. A few people have. You need a pretty big amount of hardware to do it, but you can bounce a signal off the moon and get it back again. So that is definitely doable. Okay. Anybody got anything else for me? If not, I will briefly talk about the license conditions if you're interested. Do we have to go out and buy a job lot to send QSL cards? They're a bit of a dying thing, to be honest, these days. I used to be big into collecting. I've got a few in the in tray somewhere. Let's have a look. I've got a few I'm meant to be answering. So it used to be a thing that you would send out QSL cards, which are basically postcards. I've got any kicking about. Yeah, I got a bit bored with doing them because they're a bit not as exciting as you think. I've got some lovely. Don't get me wrong. I've got some lovely QSL cards. Just trying to find some now. Look at my little hand folder. I have a few in there. And I kept some of my favourite ones, but they're so time consuming. It just takes a long old time to do them. But yeah, they're basically postcards that you physically send out to people. There's something called the Bureau, where you can get them sent out via the... here's a good one. So this is one of my more favourite ones. Where's the actual QSL card? This was a joke. I can speak a tiny bit of Czech, and I had a QSO with a guy in the Czech Republic, and he sent me a little bottle of alcohol and some postcards and a QSL card. That was cute. I kept that one because that was a real surprise getting that through the post. Where are my QSL cards? I've got them now. Keep them up here. I've got loads of them kicking around, so you can never find them when you want, can you? Hang on, here we go. Here's a few. Yeah, so that's my QSL card, and on the back you put the details of who you've made the contact with. So yeah, I kind of got bored of doing it, to be honest. We now, yeah, my filing system's not great. Most of us now use something called EQSL, where you do it automatically and electronically, so less mucking about with postcards. It is all sort of online and electronic. So I use EQSL, where it's done automatically for me once I've logged a contact. But up to you. Some people love them. Some people have their rooms papered with them. For me, they're just a bit of a pain in the backside, so I tend not to do them. I used to do them religiously for everything, but it starts costing money getting them printed and posted and stuff like that. So no. Entirely up to you though. Some people love it. I mean, the first time I spoke to Australia, I got the card. I wanted the card because it just proved I'd done it. I think my fourth time of speaking to Australia, I didn't really care that by then because I'd done it once. And I think I've kept my first America, my first Japan, my first China, my first New Zealand, my first Australia, and a few other ones. But EQSL is a lot easier and more convenient these days. Okie dokie. Right, if there's nothing else, I'll just touch on the licence changes, and then I'm happy to let you go about the rest of your evening if you've got nothing else. Postage costs will be cheaper to visit. So you can do something called use the bureau. And have I still got one somewhere? I swore I'd had an envelope from the bureau. So the bureau is something that the RSGB runs, and the aim is you send your cards to the RSGB, and they send them out on your behalf to other countries. So they sort of help cover the postage for getting them into other countries. It's a bit of a faff, but you write your cards, you send them to a volunteer at the RSGB, and that volunteer sends them overseas for you using the RSGB postal system. No, can't find them. Yeah, it's the peat filing system. So it does save a lot of money, but it's still a bit of a faff, and it's a bit of a dying art these days, to be honest. Okie dokie. Right, so let's just talk about the new licence conditions, and I'm going to be kind of venting my anger at the RSGB on this one a little bit. So basically on the 22nd of February, Ofcom changed the amateur radio licences. So let me get the dates here. So in June last year, 2023, Ofcom said they were going to be changing the licences. And what they proposed was pretty awesome. And they ran a consultation for about 4 months to talk about possible changes. That consultation finished in December. And what they came back with was even better than we could possibly hope for. So what then happened is the Ofcom said, okay, new exams will start from the new licences will start from 2024. New licences. So in 2024, we all got our new licences, which is wicked. So I'm using, and if you get a foundation licence, you can use that straight away. From February, you could use it. The RSGB said, okay, we'll bring out the updated syllabus and the new exams from 2024. So there was going to be a gap of about a month, which was all right. And then the RSGB said, oh no, it needs far more work than that, so we're going to bring in the new exams in September. So that's a bit bonkers, because I'll give you an example. So, okay, you folks in the chat room, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Based on the course, forget what else you've heard, can foundation people transmit from aircraft? Here's a question. I'll ask you another one. What is the maximum power for foundation? And can you build your own transmitters from kits? Okay, so it's no on aircraft, 10 watts, and no. Okay, correct, you've all passed your exam. However, from the 22nd of February, so now, you can transmit from aircraft, The power for foundation is now 25 watts, and you can build transmitters. But for the exams, if your exam is before the 1st of September, then the answer is no 10 watts and no. So effectively for 6 months, we will be teaching the wrong information to help you pass the exams. I'm pretty cross about it, to be honest, because I don't believe it needs that much effort for the RSGB to sort out their exams. I'm a little bit cross. I have made a bit of a fuss about it. I've upset a few people at the RSGB about it because I think it's absolutely bonkers that it takes 6 months to make these relatively small changes. So what it means is, for the exam, you have to answer currently, until the 1st of September, you have to say you cannot transmit from an aircraft, maximum of 10 watts, and you can't build a kit or a transmitter. So for the exam, they are the right answers, but in reality, I've done it. I've transmitted from an aircraft. I've transmitted power limits. So the power limits, and again, I'm now talking about the exam. So for exam, it's 10 watts at foundation, 40 watts, 100 watts. No, hang on, let me get that right, sorry. So foundation is, for the exam, is 10, intermediate is 50, and full is 400. So that's for the exam. But in reality, it's now 25, 100, and 1 kilowatt. But I'm all about teaching you how to pass the exam. So at the moment, I'm teaching you that. There are some other interesting changes just to go through. So obviously the power is an interesting one. And what was great, and I'm quite pleased this happened actually. So in the consultation, Ofcom said 20 watts would be an increase from 10 to 20. So everybody basically got double. And a lot of people, some clever people said, hang on a minute, most radios work in 5, 25, 50 and 100. So if you switch the power settings, so they said because most radios have not got a 20 watt setting, they've got a 25 watt setting, people couldn't use 20 watts. So Ofcom said, all right, have 25 then. So we got a free 5 watts out of it, which is pretty impressive. So we did well. The other changes that are coming have come, but they're not in the exam yet. So again, for your exam before the 1st of September, ignore what I'm saying. So our regional secondary locators, so if I'm in Scotland, I'm MM0PSX. The M is now optional. So you don't need the M if you don't want it. So they've taken the M out. They basically said if you want to use it you can, but you don't have to. So that is a change that has come in. They've also done away with the suffixes, you know, the /M, /P, /A, and they've done away with that. Again, for the exam, you still need to know them, but in reality, you don't. And there's a whole bunch of other changes that are kind of less exciting. You can, previously you couldn't run repeaters at foundation, you now can. Aircraft, obviously, we've talked about. Aircraft is really low power though. It's not very exciting. You don't get a lot of power. I've done it from an aircraft. We were me and my friend were the first people in the UK to do it. So he's a pilot, and we said, right, we're going up in a plane to do it. So we did it, but the power was ridiculous. It was like 0.3 watts to do it, and it wasn't great, but it was good fun. So yeah, don't worry about these changes. Yeah, maritime. Yes, there is a change to maritime actually. So they've effectively relaxed the rules on operating in inland waters and in British territorial waters. So they have relaxed that a little bit. They've also effectively changed the supervision rules. So you can now supervise people that don't even have a licence. They've relaxed it that much. So there's quite a bit of changes there. What I would say is we have done a video. So if you go onto the SXM YouTube feed, there is a video that explains all about this. Yeah, the intermediate call signs is another good one. So intermediate call signs, currently 2E0 for England. So nobody's ever liked them. 2E's really clunky, so they're being replaced with M8. So M8 will be the new intermediate. It's going to take a little while for that to come in, probably later this year, because they need to update their IT systems at Ofcom. So they were estimating by the end of this year, then the 2E0s will be replaced with M8s. You can keep your 2E if you've got one, but the new ones issued will be M8. The other one that has upset a few people is, so I actually hold a number of licenses. I hold M6 PSI was my foundation, 2E0 PSL was my intermediate, and M0 PSX. So I hold those three. Going forward, I'm only allowed one of these, and I've got to pick. Obviously, I'm going to pick that one because that gets me a kilowatt rather than 25 watts. But it used to be that you could hang on to your old call signs, but they're getting rid of that. So one call sign per ammeter now. Yeah, so Jonathan's question, end of the year, is the current estimate for the new calls. Not to worry though, so if you want to take your intermediate early, take your intermediate now, get a 2E0 call sign, and then change it for an M8 call sign. So don't wait for the new call signs to come in. You will be able to change it. And if you had 2E0 ABC, you'd automatically have the option to get M8 ABC. So yeah, don't wait. You can just do your intermediate whenever you're ready. So as I say, ignore all of that for the exam. Thanks to the glorious people at the RSGB for mucking everything up. So what I'm teaching you in the course is still correct for the exam. When it gets to the 1st of September, then all the exam questions will change and be on the new licence conditions. So taking your exam before September, what I've taught you is all correct. After September, it isn't. So at some point, we're estimating June, we're going to start running concurrent courses. So when you apply for an SExam course, you're either on the pre-September one or the post-September one. And we're going to have to run 2 lots of courses at the same time. It's a nightmare. But this is the RSGB for you. We love you, RSGB, honest. Okay. Rant over, thank you. So is there anything else I can help anybody with? Any final questions on anything? Otherwise, I'll wrap up tonight's session. So anything else I can help anyone with, please? Last chance for the moment. Send them a bill, yeah, I wish. It's also silly things like some of you might have bought the manual. Obviously that's now out of date, or it will be on the 1st of September. These manuals used to be quite good because you could sort of use them as a reference tool, but it's going to be out of date. They haven't brought out the new one yet, so people are going to have out of date manuals, get confused. Then you've got websites that are going to have mocks, some with the new questions, some with the old questions. It's a mess. I'm amazed they've been so inefficient about it, to be honest, but they've made a right dog's breakfast of this one, but there we go. The Kindle manual's okay because they might update that one eventually, but the paper ones are a nightmare. Obviously, as a trainer, I have to have the manuals as well. And have a look. Yeah. So every time they change the syllabus, I have to buy the new manual. So I've got the foundation manual, the foundation manual. The foundation manual, the foundation manual, the foundation manual, and the foundation manual, and they're all different, which is a pain. So the current one, I'm still quite proud of this. The old manual, or the oldish manual, that one had so many mistakes in it that I kicked up a bit of a fuss and complained, and I rewrote bits of the manual for them. So if you've got this one, and you look there, it says, thanks to Pete from SExam for rewriting it for us. So, yes, I got a bit cross because it's just not a good training manual in places, but they fixed a lot of it. But again, that's now going to be out of date. There's a new one being worked on at the moment, apparently. So there you go. Right, enjoy the aurora. Yes, that should be worth a look. It looks pretty cloud-free out there, so I'll be out there having a look on that in a bit. Have a listen to the radio as well. You might get some weird radio signals if you do happen to have a radio, particularly on HF, while the Aurora's doing its bit. So any final questions from anyone? If not, I'll let you all go. Last chance for questions. Otherwise, just email them through as and when. That's also fine. If there's nothing else, I will sign off with the traditional amateur radio goodbye, which is... Anyone guess what I've written? What the abbreviation for goodbye or best regards is? Let's see who's got it. First one to get it. Get my gratitude and nothing else. 73. Thank you. Well done, Kevin. So that's the abbreviation for best regards in amateur radio world. So yeah, good. A few of you have got that as well. Well done. RSGB Radio Handbook any good? It's all right. It's a bit wordy. The reason I did our course the way we do it is I just give you the bullet points. This tries to tell a story. It's all right. It's not bad. It fills in some blanks, but there's more in there that you need to know to pass the exam. And I'm more interested in helping you pass the exam than trying to write a book. So I'm more about the bullet points and underlining what you need to know and testing you on what you need to know. The book is useful. It's better now. I've fixed a few bits of it in it as well. But yeah, it's definitely got its uses. But all you need is our course. Everything is in our course as well, so that's fine. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. If there's nothing else, I will let you go. So 73. Appreciate your time this evening. Any questions, fire them over. I'll try and do another one of these in 3 or 4 weeks' time. So stay tuned, and we'll be doing one of these again shortly. So thank you again, everyone. Have a good evening. Have a good rest of the weekend. And yeah, 73. Ta-ra for now.